Cool. What's up? What's up, man? Good morning. All right. Let's see what we get today. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We're at a point here in price where we don't really want to be trying to call a top. So pretty much all highs that get created, we're going to be looking to target that until we're pretty much proven otherwise. That would come in the form of this fair value gap here being inverted. So as long as we are within this, we will look for a run higher. We fall through that, close below. That'll kind of set our interest into some of these short-term lows. Might be able to run these here. Yeah, because so far, right, as we see, ever since we cleared this original sell side, really all the way back here, this set into motion the huge run into all-time highs. And we've just stayed bullish. So we have high impact news here in 3 minutes, 9:45. If we can stay below the buy side here, that'd be nice. I wouldn't mind that. So yeah, we'd look for a run lower, ideally. That's what we'll kind of be expecting here. If we're going to want to see higher prices, we want to see price trade lower first, pick up either this low or maybe one of these lows. Revisit what inefficiency, as we said, the 4 hour here. Cool. All right. We will see, we will see. Good morning, my man. Our first presented was created here. And this actually is a YouTube framework that we've created if we can clear this low. So we may have to be careful here. Right, short-term high cleared. As we said, pretty clean YouTube framework. Short-term high cleared, staying inside that range. No closure above. Break lower. Through the short-term low, closing below that. Leaving the inefficiency. Notice it's also aligned with our order block pretty perfectly. The opening price there. So I'd actually like to see this hold. If we're going to want to clear lows, we have to hold the premium setup first. I'd like to see that hold as a bearish setup, attack sell side here and here. Maybe revisit the 4 hour. We'll see what that news event does. Okay, so far pretty slow. She said we'll look for a touch of this. Well, we have touched it technically. We'll look for price to trade inside that, then come for this low. We like that this low was stopped just above these equal lows here as well. So it's going to be easy target. Sell side if we want to target that. As we said, for us, we'll really wait until the 4 hour. That'd be our key level to look for the long opportunity. If we kind of run this sell side, continue to blast off from here, that's just something that we'd have to miss. We'll let it grind higher without us. Wouldn't mind the sell side because it's also pretty much near our opening range and midpoint. So if we're going to expect price to reach into that, we'd want to see that as well. First spike into first presented here. As we said, we expect something like this to hold us. Be careful, we did just sweep these lows here. So we did pick up a short-term low. If we want to run bullish off of that short-term low, This obviously will be the buy side here. We'd like to see this be left alone for now until we can come lower first. We'd want to see this sell side be engaged and then the buy side. If we're going to stay bullish, however, all-time high market, we'll just run right through first presented after picking up the short-term low. And we should gravitate into buy side 1 here. And then eventually the new all-time high as well. So at this point, pretty much looking for the reaction inside first presented. If we close above that, buy side will be our objective there. Beautiful closure there, really perfect. Volume imbalance, however. So if that stays open and we continue to try to push, as we say, we're going to stay bullish here. This would really need to be the swing high if we're going to try to make a bearish move, ideally. Right, this high here should become a swing point, which means we'd want to see this bullish volume imbalance get closed in. Ideally closing underneath the first presented again, and then from there look for the run lower. So if that stays open, we've already ran that high, so already we're expecting bullishness. Right, this high should have been left alone. We'll wait for this closure, but it's looking pretty strong. Any closure above first presented, this should be an inversion, and as we said, we'll look for buy side right away. $9.38. So for me, right, and kind of if you listen to Michael as well, that fair value gap here is just too small to be really truly classified as the first presented. Now you could use it, right, and say it is, could play a role in your analysis. But the size of that fair value gap is why we're not looking at that as the first presented there. If we wanted to at least be one handle in size, this one was only 1 tick. Aside from that, the actual first presented we have marked is pretty much right where this one was formed as well. So you notice that they share the same high, which is why we're using the larger fair value gap there. Pretty much the same level in price. That's why we see this one being respected so well there. Right, look at first we respect the low, then we perfectly respect midpoint, leaving this open, however. So for us, we believe buy side. Right, volume imbalance will become bullish. It'll try to press into the buy side more than likely. Rejection block here will offer potential hesitation. So we could see a slight hesitation here, but as we said, we expect that to be traded through. So look for that rejection at rejection block. Short-term rejection anyways. This was the first candle to close above the first presented. So we would almost expect, right, if we're going to touch it, this will be the first touch as an inversion level. We should be able to try to hold that there. So that's what we're going to watch now. Ideally, we try to hold that. We run the buy side. And then from there, we'll see if we can't come back for the sell side, but we might just stay bullish. And yeah, no problem, Aoma. Hopefully I say your name right. Slight caveats to the first presented, but yeah, for us, we always want it to be at least one handle in size. And we'll see, we're kind of just gravitating inside of that right now. The volume imbalance is offering pretty perfect support there. So I have NQ here on the side, and you can really see very different opening, right? So they're not in sync at all. NQ is pretty much doing what we would have wanted to see ES do, which was run out the sell side and continue to target that. We use NQ's first presented bearishly. Let's hide some of these. So we fall outside of opening range. We then use the low of that beautiful framework there. Display slower, bearish order block with first presented. We trade up into that. And now we're pretty much creating delivery here that we call that stair stepper. It's going to be very easy to run out some of these lows. So if we retest this, we would expect that to kind of fall through, clear all these lows. Yeah, very mixed so far. Not much going on. We do have Powell speaking later this afternoon, so today could be a little wishy-washy, especially with us being at all-time highs, and pal speaking, we could run into pretty subpar price action. Seeing this candle hold, still holding the volume balance. So really at this point, I would favor a run higher. We want to try to get some of these highs here. A lot of buy side being built up now. Right now we have another buy side pool here. So we've already picked up the most recent sell side. Buy side's all that's really left. We'd like to see that, try to be engaged. All of these levels here. Cool, so we can get first buy side, perfect delivery, nice. Let's get the second one, wouldn't mind that in the same run. So yeah, so far as we said, we're liking the longs. Even though we have a mixed opening, that's why we're trying to kind of really disregard NQ. We favor runs higher, so we're going to continue to look for price to support that idea. So far it is. There's that second buy side, beautiful. We can move this one. So this one is what we really want. That's external range, right? Let's back out, higher time frame. That's all-time high. No highs higher than that. Once we get there, it'll be pretty interesting. Honestly, we'll kind of expect it to continue to run, especially with how low NQ is. So if NQ is going to want to be bullish at all, it's going to allow for more room to the upside in ES. Conversely, we are running into a funny situation where we may try to turtle soup this high. Right, so with NQ being so low, still being within its first presented here, if ES was to run this high again, clear that buy side while NQ stays this low, but that'll set into motion a run lower. For now, still watching. We got two of the buy side pools. We still expect this. So this retracement, we're not thinking is going to break lower on us. Simply retracing into this first presented again, and we'll look for one more run into buy side. We often speak about how after clearing short-term highs, price will retrace into the original inefficiencies that was used the first time, and then still create a run. So we kind of want to see that happen here. Falling just short of all-time highs, a little fishy, especially in a market that's going to continue to try to target buy side. Right, leaving that buy side pool there, seems like we're going to want to use it here later this morning. NQ gives us that delivery we would expect, right, falling, right, taking the elevator down. As you say, this type of delivery higher, very easy to run those lows out, low resistance runs there. We would have wanted to see the buy side first. So we don't mind trying to get involved on shorts here, especially with where we are in both. But as we said, if we could have actually cleared all-time high first, that'd be a little bit, we'll just say, more inviting for us. We're still going to follow first presented here. In my mind, if we give up the volume balance after clearing buy side here and buy side here, we can make an attempt for this sell side. Interest is in the volume imbalance here. YM gross. We'll give you a look though. Yeah, I'm not much of a YM guy at all. Yeah, look at that. Oh wait, and I have delayed data for YM for some reason. What the? Must not have updated. Oh, I'm not signed in, that's why. If we just go off this though, YM is probably going to be ripping higher. YM is usually the ugly duckling. Right? It's the one that's always going to be kind of the most different from ES and NQ. Which is why, yeah, I really don't use that at all, if I'm being completely honest. I don't really regard YM's price action too much. Just me, personally. So far, seeming more bearish. We didn't close below the slow yet in NQ. That will lead us to believe we'll get actual extension. Right now, we're kind of just picking up that short-term low. So we still have a chance of trying to invert this running bullish. At the same time, however, being below the volume imbalance, as we said, if we're going to close below it, we expect that to be resistance. This candle wicks into the bearish fair value gap as well. Holds perfectly at the high first presented. So really just stuck in this range bound here. Right in the middle of the range. Notice we're pretty much between the buy side here and the sell side here that we had targeted. We want to see this low now. Our attention will go back to here. As soon as we got below first presented, that's our flip point. That is kind of our signal to look for the long or the shorts into a short-term low. We'll see if NQ can close below this low for the first time. It will do it, leaving a volume imbalance. That'll be a pretty strong bearish signature. Breaking through old lows, leaving premiums behind aligned with that. Okay, so we did get closure below. We didn't close below this low. That becomes the next objective. But closing below this low sets into motion the idea that we can attack this low here. So that's what we're going to look for next. We want to see the volume imbalance hold price with the bodies in NQ. We want to see first presented continue to hold price in ES. If we can get this low, more than likely ES will attack this low. So we're looking for lows at this point in both. All right, sell side here. Once again, we can see hesitation at our rejection block. So as we trade into this here, price can reject, kind of like we saw the first time we traded into the bearish rejection up here. So we almost would expect something like that to occur here. Quick bounce, but eventually then we want to fall through, slice right through, attack that sell side. Added one more sell side pull I'd like to see here. It's this low. That's pretty much our last intermediate swing point before the 4 hour. That's why I like that one there. Trying to start to break down some bullish structure. You'll notice that the rejection block actually held both times. So the wick does do some damage. But as we say, bodies tell the story. Couldn't even get near its midpoint. NQ attacked that low again though. However, we cannot close below. So still struggling to close below levels. Right, we never liked that. It's very easy to reject and run higher. retesting first presented. In the grand scheme of things, still just range bound. Not much going on. We're zoomed in here, but in reality, small range. We're stuck inside. We left some equal lows here, so I'm not quite convinced this will try to run out this high quite yet. Closure tells the story, as we say. Waiting for closure. Yeah, pretty strong rejection. So if we're going to go bearish, this should be the swing high. Honestly, ideally. It did leave equal highs, which is not ideal. But that first presented's holding perfectly there. Notice the equal lows were created at the high of the opening range. So very algorithmic delivery here. It's kind of what we notice when price is range bound like this. Price action itself is pretty ugly, but the levels that get respected are pretty precise. So as we said, we'll look for that to be the swing high. We want that to be a swing high. Volume imbalance here in NQ still held us, so the volume imbalance is doing its role. As we say, Wick's doing some damage, but body's really telling the story. This swing high gets confirmed, we'd want to see the equal lows be the next target. Yep, so the equal lows here should be attacked first. We'd want to see that. As we said, we do have opening range, new day opening gap, midpoint. Yeah, we want at least midpoint. Even this low fell short of that. So that's ultimately our objective here is midpoint of our opening range. Trusting and committing to the idea of running out some lows. Pretty, real pretty. Perfect delivery. Let's get the actual sell side. Nice. Perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna want, we got that, we got this, we want the, oh, look at that close. Jeez. Hard to argue that. All right, look at that. I mean, that's perfect. We'll see if we can get this. That close to me is a little iffy, especially with NQ not running the low out there. We could see this trying to reverse on us pretty quickly. Ideally, we just should run this sell side quick. If not, leave a fair value gap open. We don't want to see this candle run all the way back up to this candlestick's low. We want to leave some type of inefficiency here, ideally. Not looking too hot, though. With SMT at the lows. So we're going to immediately rebalance, which means if this still is the objective, next candle needs to break aggressively. As you said, we've just immediately rebalanced into this candlestick, which means if we're going to try to get bearish at all, this wick has to be the premium that holds price and sends it lower. We get above that, and we're going to come back into first presented again. Continue to reference that. We did get that sell side. We were speaking about how after clearing that sell side, we could see price run now for this buy side. So that's kind of what we're looking at here, especially if that volume imbalance remains open. First presented here. Get above that, we should be able to run. Right, delivering perfectly into our sell side where we expected the bounce to occur. This was just best case scenario. We get above that. Buy side will be next. Buy new low. Yeah, not being a total soup there. But now we like volume imbalance plus wick. Notice that this wick and volume imbalance, look what the volume imbalance has formed. New day opening gap perfectly. So at this point, because we did clear that sell side, we got midpoint of our opening range. We'd actually want to see a retest of our opening range be met with support here. First presented will try to hold us in the short term, but eventually we want to make a run for this buy side now. That becomes our new objective. So sell side, our sell side objective was hit. This, as we said, we had labeled, but wasn't the primarily sell side target. That was just if we wanted to stay bearish. Clearing this low, holding that perfectly. I'd want to see if a retest of opening range can't be met with support here. If this high here could have stayed equal highs, we would trust this a little bit more. We still want to see higher prices. But the fact that this short-term high here cleared the equal highs, that's going to be a short-term high being cleared. May create a run lower. NQ finally delivered into its bearish fair value gap. Still couldn't get above it. Midpoint still holding as well. So we're still in a situation where we could fall right through this low pretty easily. Very subpar action today. Haven't done anything. If we can get above our first presented, we should be able to run. Notice that this candle here didn't get into our opening range, but it perfectly delivered into the bullish fair value gap. So that's still fine. Perfect delivery, continuing. Notice as we leave the fair value gap for the first time, volume imbalance again. That's what we would want to hold. If we're going to retest that. Closure not above, but closure on the high. This could almost be a volume imbalance entry here. We don't do those much anymore. But the idea is we expect buy side up here. We'd have to get a pretty large run to even get 5 handles, which is why we won't execute. But you can enter on a retest of this candlestick's closure, expecting the volume imbalance to remain open. So right, entry would have been on that. We like that because it's anchored to the high that first presented as well. So when volume imbalances are formed, like we see here, they don't tend to run the low of the previous candle. If they're going to be true bullish volume imbalance, that's where the idea of entering on the high comes into place. Your stop becomes the low of the previous candle. So it'd be something like that. Of course, it'll leave a fair value gap, so you could wait for the retracement entry. But these are good entries if price is going to be very animated, because a lot of times it won't give the retracement. So we'll see if we can get the retracement here in this case. But if not, we wouldn't be surprised to see this actually be a breakaway until buy side gets targeted, because we've already spent so much time inside of it, right? If that makes sense. So there's no need for price to truly retrace into this first presented before hitting buy side if it doesn't want to. NQ short-term high inside the fair value gap still. So yeah, we're still at a point where it's really 50-50 based off price delivery itself. At this point, if I had to pick a side, we're just going to go for the opposing liquidity. So we've cleared sell side. If we're going to be in kind of this range around choppiness, this liquidity here just makes sense. All-time highs, as we say, it just makes sense. We're not going to be trying to call the top here. In my mind, we're trying to bait people to short all-time highs up here. Right, so whatever they'd like to call multiple tops, resistance, build in a lot of buy-side liquidity that price can then just run and continue to deliver higher. That's our expectation here. Really focusing on first presented. This is price action here that frustrates people, or where you absolutely blow up your accounts because it's not giving you the run you want, lower or higher. As long as we hold first presented, we still like the idea of trying to get bullish. Sheesh. Yeah, this is ridiculous. I mean, really, since we opened, let's see the range. Opening candle. 9 handles, yeah, that's very mediocre. 9 handles since the opening. Still like higher prices from here. Ideally, we get back above first presented. That would be our pretty much what we're looking for. Or confirmation to trust higher prices. Because I'm also looking at this bearish fair value gap. And we closed above it. However, one thing we often talk about is the old close above, next candle negates it. And that's kind of what we got, right? We closed above it, very next candle, however, negates this candle, closes back below its midpoint even. So to us, that's kind of washing the idea of using this as an inversion. We wouldn't trust it as a true inversion, but closing above it the first time can still give us some insight on the fact that price may want to actually continue higher again. Right, so showing an unwillingness really to attack lows or break discounts ever since we delivered into our sell side, we're going to expect the run higher to continue. Let's see, hourly candle, pretty indecisive, so might need to retest. Sorry, midnight level, yeah. Might need to retest midnight one more time. Get below the hourly open, power of 3. As I was saying, ideally this low stays intact, and if we're going to use anything, it's the volume imbalance here. Whoa. Wrong. So this is really what our attention is at right now, the volume imbalance here. Because that's also where midnight is. So we're sitting at midnight right now. We'll see what reaction we get at midnight. Holy NQ is a garbage can. We got one nice setup at least in NQ, really 2. That was a clean one too. Short-term high cleared, opening range setup, break lower. ES, however, not much at all. We're at a point where we want to see this buy side. That's kind of what our bias is ever since clearing this low and it getting above our first presented. That to us is kind of the flip point We did get back below it here. We're not a fan of that closure, especially because this was a bullish volume imbalance with no wick to the upside. The only benefit would be if this candle could pretty much, like we saw here, right, the negation. If this candle can negate this previous candle and try to close back either inside the first presented or at least above this volume imbalance here. So it's going to close perfectly. I mean, look at that delivery. Perfect closure at the low, perfect closure at the high. Immediate rebalance here, a little fishy. That can lead to a run lower if we're going to get stuck at this wick. So from here, we would want this to be a swing low, and we would want to see this wick be retaken. We want price to close above that. If we stay stuck inside that, stay below the first presented, we'll just look for that low grind back down again. This delivery is actually crazy inside of here. Holy cow. Struggling. Yeah, very, very annoying today. I'll give you all that. Subpar. Terrible delivery. Honestly, these are days where we kind of just go do something else. We'll wait till 10:30, see if it cleans up that last half hour. But yeah, as we said, Powell's speaking this afternoon. So we already had the expectation that today in itself would be a little bit wonky, which is why we're not too surprised by this. Yeah, it's annoying, right? It's always a drag to sit through, but it's not like it's surprising. So at least that's one positive. All right, we're not in here trying to go long, go short, go long. These are those deliveries where you flip a coin and you let your risk management treat you well. Heads you go long, tails you go short. All right, there's opening range. I kind of like that. If anything, I really like this volume imbalance, right? The best entries in this type of price will be at the extremes of the range. So if you're going to try to force yourself to engage, you have to really wait for, as we're saying, either the low of the range or the high of the range to be traded into. Holy cow. This fair value gap is absolutely a black hole right now on NQ. Did we get back above that? No, we did not. We're still holding that volume imbalance, so wouldn't mind that being a low. I like this. I like this little framework we're getting here. As we said, we got below the hourly open. We're revisiting midnight. If this becomes a swing low, I like that. All right, we pick up this short-term low. We hold opening range. I want to get closure above volume imbalance. Can NQ get above? So this one that I have is part of my all-in-one indicator, which is actually a paid one, so I don't think you'd have access to that. But I know there are some like just normal, if you type in like power of 3, there will be indicators that you could use. Right, really any of these would work. 2 degrees is a pretty good respected guy in the ICT space, so that'd be a good one to look at. So yeah, really any of these. Simply just an indicator. All right, we're falling. The sell side comes back into attention. I'm just still, for the short period, right, we'll look for the slow. But man, these highs are just too juicy for us, especially at all-time highs. These need to be ripped off at some point. We'll see if New Day opening gap doesn't want to offer anything. Let's see what we get in NQ here. This little wick has my attention here. For a premium, we're gonna watch that. Yeah, we'll watch that. NQ closes below that fair value gap too. That leads me to believe we're going to get that run lower. Just could not attack the buy side right now. So no need to force that. We do pick up some intermediate swings. Leave the external. Right, as we say, once again, rejection block holds. At this point, I want the 4 hour. Our attention goes back to that. So this was the original objective. We fall short once, twice, 3, 4 times. I think we're going to leave that for the time being, and sell side's going to be the objective. So we should use New Day opening gap here as resistance. Make a run for this low, sell side here, and then get into the 4 hour. That's what we're going to look for. I like that. That'll be expectation. We want closure below this low. That's nice and all, but we need to get below that for sure. That's the opening range as well. I'm not liking that much. We want to close below that, close outside of our opening range. We don't want to see this bounce, because that's going to stay ugly. We wouldn't mind some type of inefficiency here. That'll give us a gauge on price delivery. Right after we interact with sell side, we always want to watch that last fair value gap that gets created and see what takes place there. So we got our second sell side objective. We hold perfectly at the low. At this point, I still would want to see this low be ran one more time, if I'm being honest. We would favor a true release. Try to break this short-term low here. If we can do that. Because that would be, yeah, that'd be ideal. As we said, this was kind of our sell signal here. If we were going to keep this low intact, new day opening gap would have held. So the fact that we fall right through that and then leave the fair value gap there, it's a pretty significant sell signal. We did get the sell side here. As we said, we want to see if we can get a little bit lower outside of our opening range. This was our first entry. It might be our only entry really if we get stopped. There just wasn't much that we liked in here. But as you said, right, with the extreme of the range kind of being broken here, we should have respected the volume imbalance. We don't. We leave a premium. I like that. With how we're moving, I'm very quick to break even, so we can run through it afterwards, but we enter on the high here, midpoint of that wick. That's where stop loss is at. No partials or anything, so it'll just be a break even. Right, in theory, it makes sense to try to partial here, but it's like, it's just not worth it. Right, so that's an instance where we can't partial out because not enough movement. Alright, so first entry today, break even. We might just not even attempt another one. Alright, we'll see what we get from here. As we said, I don't really want to be flipping this back and forth. Thank you. All right, from here, if we can get above that again, we might have to give it one more opportunity. These highs are too clean, and we've cleared so much sell side. Sell side, sell side, sell side. We'll watch the inversion play out. Would be unfortunate if we got stopped here on the high for the break lower. Very possible. NQ still, look at that fair value gap. Brick wall today. Holy cow. Alright, 10:30 now. So ideally our morning range put in place. Which if this could be our morning range, we should get the run higher, which would be nice. I still want to see if we can't get above new day opening gap. That'd be like our true signal. So for now we'll just follow these discounts and see if they can't hold. I wouldn't want to do anything until we clear new day opening gap here. Any other day we would trust this as a long NQ and we would want to see this hold here like this. So we'll watch that, but we have very low expectations. Right, for it to go back into the opening range in NQ. Structure alone, we clear a short-term low here, we clear this short-term low, we displace above midpoint of the fair value gap, leaving a 1 minute fair value gap open. We didn't get any closure above a high, however, so that'd be the one thing kind of going against us here, is that we don't have a true break and structure higher. But yeah, we are at a point where longs seem ideal. Since we're just kind of stuck here, we'll quickly show this. This is what we were talking about. Right, so really nothing at all, just sideways back and forth. I'm looking here at this new day opening gap, and I'm thinking that if we're going to keep this as a protected low, that needs to hold, especially as this wick was formed. We formed the wick, we displaced through the wick, close under new day opening gap, leave the 1 minute fair value gap perfectly there. So as you said, we're going short midpoint of that, which is the old low, so we get the perfect entry, and then we just get stopped as price runs back up into that. So break even. No partial, as we mentioned at the low, just because it wasn't enough room from here into that. That's only 3 handles, so not really worth partialing out. We were going to try to fully close at the 4 hour. We just fall short of it. So now from here, I mean, yeah, it might just be a wash. I might just call it a day. I would favor a long, so we're going to try to look for one long signal. But holy cow, let's just hide everything. Just look at pure price today. Disgusting. NQ, even worse, geez. Straight up barcode. I mean, I guess as we said, we did give one nice opportunity. Short-term high cleared. Break lower. Through the low. Opening range low entry, even first presented. So really 2 clean entries in NQ to the downside. ES, you would have been hard pressed to find something that truly paid you well, that was worth taking. Which is why we kind of didn't do anything. Right? We had one opportunity here, that is what I would have looked for. Quick 5 handle move. Even that can't produce, so. Lackluster today. As you said, that would be very unfortunate, however, if that is, we get stopped right on the high there. Happens. Break even, can't complain. Right, no money lost is a win. But this is looking pretty bearish now, so yeah, we hold that nicely. Retest of this fair value gap, so we reclaim this fair value gap here. Right, we held that one. This gets reclaimed, we would look for that to hold if price is going to trade up into that. What's NQ? So ES leading the way to the downside now. NQ just stuck inside. I'm not even convinced there. Like, more than likely, that's just going to be a wick. We won't try to close below that low, because that's the opening range again, and the 5 minute fair value gap. If we can close below, then we should finally get the 4 hour, but don't be surprised if we kind of wick this, run right back into new day opening gap. Closure below, boom. All right, we should get that release now. So it seems like we'll miss this. We'll be taken out quite literally just before the move. Situation to where if we would have kept our original stop, we would have been fine because our stop was here, right, using the wick and above midnight to target that. But with the current delivery, just didn't really want to be involved much. So we were pretty quick to go break even, and it might cost us here. But we are okay with that. Honestly, we leave an inefficiency here. We should break. Especially if it's perfectly left there. So if we leave that fair value gap, anticipating that to form before it even does, that premium should hold us into the 4 hour. So it looks like, yeah, we're about to forecast that. So that should hold. Unless we attack the 4 hour first, of course. We don't, so yeah. We look for that. Of course, this though, not much to aim for. Even if we were going to try to target the low inside. This is one of those ones, just not enough room to really do anything. So we just follow it. I'd much rather actually see us clear this low, invert this fair value gap, and take some type of long back up into that range. If we don't get that, there'll be nothing to do. If we keep falling lower, still will kind of be nothing to do. We'll just miss out today. Yep, so unfortunate there, just simply reusing the original entry mechanic. as we said, took us out a little quick to break even. And we'll see if target gets met here. If we can meet target before invert or running into this fair value gap, we would really look for that to be an inversion play. Look at that, just hovering, just playing there. That might be perfect actually. What's the high of this? 67.44.5, low 67. Okay, so yeah, perfect delivery into the 4 hour. We want to actually touch that though. We want price to print inside of it, ideally picking up the low that's resting right near the high of it there. So at this point, if that becomes a swing low, we expect this fair value gap to act as resistance on a retracement. It's paired with the wick. So we would look at both of these as premiums that should hold price. Don't forget sell side as well. And actually, mean threshold of the wick and sell side, are they the same? They are the exact same. So yeah, this should be our area of resistance here, especially with us failing to get into that. So we watch for this to hold, then we'll look for the short-term low. If we invert this, now we wanted the inversion play. It is just unfortunate because we did not pick up that low. I really would have wanted that low before we trust the long. So we're gonna expect and look for price to make one more leg lower, ideally off of this. If we could do that, that'd be even better, because it's always nice to put swing points inside of inefficiencies. And then if we can invert those inefficiencies while breaking structure at the same time, that's just added confirmation to trust higher prices. Well, yeah. Nice, okay, that's perfect. So right there now, if we go bullish, we'll be fine. We didn't get this low, but we don't really need to get that low. That would be ideal, right? Of course, it'd be nice to pick up that low. But if we give a buy signal here, we'll look to trust that and use it. Got pretty much exactly what we expected. Sell side holds, swing high gets created. Look how perfect the actual fair value gap was respected. It sends price into the short-term low. Only thing that would be better if this candle was to wick the actual low here, but still has a chance, so we'll see. At this point, we're waiting for this as an inversion play, and that'll be the setup. So whatever low gets put here, that's the low that we'll use for the stop. And then we're just going to target first presented up here. You say, wouldn't mind if we clear this low one more time, pick up the actual external range here. Because really, this is the only low that hasn't been cleared as far as like our current dealing range. So this is obviously all-time highs, but within that, right, what other ranges do we have? This high to this low is a dealing range because it clears equal highs and runs out equal lows. So if we look at that range, we drag it out, right, we'll notice that the high of that range has been already pretty much traded through, spiked through multiple times. And you also notice that anytime we've closed above it, the price will immediately revert into that range. Here, here, and here. Because of that, right, our expectation would be we want to see the low of that range too, trying to be at least stabbed once. But of course, it doesn't have to happen. But we just like that symmetry in market delivery, to where if we're going to clear the high of the range, we want to try to clear the low before giving that true reversal. It looks like it's simply going to want to use this though. So we'll wait for the long, as we said. If we're going to close above that, we're just going to commit to it. And if we get stopped out, we'll take the loss. and call it a day. Cool. We're not signed in on this because we're signed in on our other one. I forgot. So the entry is set. We'll watch for that. NQ finally rips too. That's aggressive. So that framework did hold nicely, as we were speaking of there. We'll see if we can get higher. We need to get retracement into the inversion for entry. Stop loss below the low. We'll see if that plays out. We want first presented up there. I mean, this will be the last entry anyways, so we'll just share, regardless of what happens. If we get stopped, as you said, we'll call it a day, and we'll let price just kind of meander, range bound. Wait, we've got to get in. Okay, I'll show you this one. So we said use inversion. And we're simply going to look for that. Had it set at midpoint originally. Just use the high of it. Low-hanging fruit. Doesn't really matter either way. But from here, we need expansion. To be honest, I will be pretty quick to try to break even again. As you said, this type of delivery, I don't like to be holding risk very long. So if we don't just get stopped right away, and like we can actually run out a short-term high, we'll look to move our stop. At this point, opening range low needs to hold. That's kind of our barometer. So if we close below that, we'll expect a stop loss. Let's bring back NQ. We don't like that delivery there. NQ cleared all the highs. ES did not. We were looking for the sixth sister using low of opening range. But it looks like we're just going to want to slice right back through and actually get that low there. We'll see though. It's been pretty ugly, so it has a chance of trying to hold. Especially NQ here at this low. That is great. This is terrible. It's been a while since we've seen price that bad. Holy cow. That's actually impressive how sideways that is. Ooh, okay, so already no go, no good. Only chance we would have is if this candle negates this candle's actions. This candle would need to get back above this fair value gap. So it has to get above the volume imbalance, has to get above this down close candle, and has to get above the fair value gap, as well as the old liquidity pool. So right now, everything is pointing towards stop loss, unless this one candle can negate. If not, we expect stop. Respecting the volume imbalance, that's the last thing we'd want to see. So, and we open with a premium. All right, so we said expectations are now stop loss unless we get something that tells us otherwise, but for the time being, everything is pointing towards a run into this low again. Or as we say, only way to negate that is if candle can pretty much displace right through this. So it'd have to cut through the volume imbalance and the fair value gap and the old low all in one motion. To do that, it's going to be very high resistance, however, which is why we expect price to just continue to bleed and attack that low we had created. All right, take us out of our misery. Here we go. Still wiki. First closure below the fair value gap, bearish premium here. We'll see if that holds an NQ, which will send us lower. Same idea. Premiums inside of our reclaimed bearish fair value gap. That's going to be very hard to get above. It's going to be strong resistance. So even though we're trading up, we're not convinced that's a run higher. It's simply retracing before breaking lower again. Yeah. We are out. Cool. All right. So over one today. Nah, no need. We'll eat that and be content. I'm still convinced that we're going to want to get these highs, right? I'm just looking at a turtle soup here, but let's see. Stop would have to be pretty tight. Nah, no need. We'll have better days ahead. So we'll call it there. 0 for 1. 2 trades technically, 1 loss. All right, so 1 break even, no partials. Second one, as we said, I'm fine taking that. We got into the 4 hour like we wanted to see. We were able to displace back above into opening range, back above the sell side. Just sloppy delivery. So we give the deeper retracement than we would like. Even here, right, like being unable to clear the lows and then trying to retrace, just indicative of very sloppy delivery. So we'll step away and let price move without us the rest of the day, especially because Powell's coming up here soon. So while Powell talks, we definitely don't want to be involved in any trade or anything. So that's it for us. Clear it all up. I just said not much of a bias. When we're at all-time highs, it's just best to look for the high to continue to be targeted. So today we may not get there, but going forward, that's still going to be the objective until, as we say, we really give true displacement. It's like something below this. We would have to displace and close below this 4 hour. If we can do that, then we'll look for some of these short-term lows. But until then, we're just going to look for every short-term swing point, buy side, to be cleared. So we'll leave you all with that. A few more minutes just in case there's any questions or anything, but we should be good. Appreciate you guys hanging out this morning. Unfortunately, very shitty price action, but still good experience. Right, get that experience of kind of seeing price deliver like this, understanding why it's best to be on the sidelines sometimes. NQ was kind of the better option today. So as we said, NQ did give us 2 opportunities, I would even say. First one using opening range low. So as we clear the short-term high here in NQ, we then break below this low, and we're leaving our opening range behind. You can use the opening range in here to get short, to then target short-term low. We then actually broke structure again, leaving the first presented, and that gave another opportunity into another short-term low. After that, of course, we kind of went sideways and got pretty ugly, but early on, well, there's only real opportunities. So that'll be it for today. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Let's see what we have for news. So high impact news again tomorrow at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock Eastern. So we'll be back about 9:50 Eastern. just before that high impact news drops at 10 o'clock. And we'll see what tomorrow gives us. Hopefully it's a little bit better. As you said, with Powell talking this afternoon, price can be a little wonky. So hopefully it kind of clears itself up. And tomorrow, high impact news brings us a nice opportunity. So until then, have a great rest of the day, everybody. Appreciate y'all hanging out this morning. Stay safe, and we will talk tomorrow morning for those in the Discord. See you guys then.